Hello guys, super impromptu video today. Me and Louise have just agreed in like the last hour to go and pick up a royal python, an 8-year-old royal, for Rehome. So let's go and see how this goes. Well, we have successfully just picked up Snakey, so now it's time to try and get her home in one piece. That's us got her back and in the house now. There's still a few things we need to do. We've not really seen her yet. We're going to give her the next week to settle in before we start changing anything. There isn't a lock on the vivarium, so that's something we've ordered straight away. That should be back tomorrow. At the moment we've just got something wedged to stop her escaping and getting out. But over the next, say, month or so, we are going to be slowly adding stuff to her enclosure. So this is nothing against the previous owner. But as you can see, it is pretty bare in here. There isn't much in ways of enrichment, which is something we really want to change now that we're housing her. We're going to have to come up with a name. We're going to add, some nice climbing spots in here. We're going to add a basking lamp. And in fact, we're probably even going to upgrade this vivarium. So we've not got a good enough look at her yet to determine size. I reckon she's maybe 2 or 3 foot just from the first look, which is already kind of pushing it for a vivarium this size. Luckily, we've got a big 6-foot viv out in the garage that we'll get in and get set up for her. Vivarium size for snakes can actually be a little bit contentious. There's some people that say your snake just needs to be able to go along the front and then down one of the sides, and that's long enough. I don't really think that's the case. I think they should be able to stretch out across the whole length of the viv and still have a little bit of space at either end. Ideally, just to give them enough space to shed, enough space to move around, and enough space for you to make a temperature gradient and a moisture gradient in the enclosure, which they really require for a lot of their processes, things like digesting and shedding. And you're probably going to find that those things just aren't achievable with a smaller vivarium. But I do get that bigger vivariums are expensive, they're hard to come by, so it's not something that's there for everyone. One of the things I want to do in the channel is actually make a custom plywood vivarium. So perhaps in the future that's something we can do. We'll make a plywood waterproof vivarium for a large reptile. And then what we'll do, as we get the yet unnamed snake out of the vivarium, this will go towards Crumpet, and this will probably be her forever home, because she's a much smaller species of snake. Or maybe even a different reptile. You'll have to let us know what you think. Just as I was speaking to you guys there, I got a little view of a snoot coming out, which I think is the first time she's been out since we brought her home. Just see the little outline of the snoot there on the little tongue. I think she's already won my heart. Right guys, so it's now been a couple of weeks since we've picked up this little girl. She finally has a name, so we've decided to go with Sereeni, who is a character from one of the books that Louise is reading. It's going to be quite a big day for her today. We've been doing a little bit of socialising and she has turned out to just be the sweetest. We were a bit worried with her being a rehome that might have been why she was giving up, because she was a little bit feisty, but that is absolutely not the case with her. Today she is going to be getting some dinner. And we are going to be updating her enclosure while she is getting fed. So she's still going to be in that viv at the moment. I don't want to change too much with her still being relatively new to the house. So it's just big enough for her. I like to give them a little bit more space, but it is just big enough. So we're going to be adding some substrate to it, a few flat plants, making it a little bit bioactive, add to some cork bark, and just making it look much more natural, which hopefully she is really going to appreciate. So I've been doing quite a lot of handling with her. She is going to be an ambassador animal for snakes and pythons that I'm going to be taking into schools and stuff, which is going to be awesome. But yes, I've been doing quite a lot of socialisation. She's been getting around 15 minutes handling twice a day, both morning and night, and she's taken to it really well. I'm really looking forward to being able to take her in and showing some kids that snakes aren't as scary as people make them out to be. But it's actually been quite a busy time in general for me. School is now out for summer, and with that, it means I've had to start bringing back the animals. So our frogs are here. So we got some Asian floating frogs and the axolotls, which is a little bit stressful at the moment because the water's all cloudy. I'm worried there's been a little bit of bacterial bloom, so I'm probably going to have to deal with that today. To add on to that, I am also hoping to film an unboxing this morning if it arrives. And I have a gecko rehouse that I'm in the middle of filming as well. So I'm just sorting out the tank for that. So there is so much on. And on top of that, I am going to Edinburgh Zoo tomorrow to start work for 2 weeks. During the summer, I work from the Education Centre teaching summer school and educational programmes like the Conservation Action Team, which is awesome, but it's so much work. But it is now time for Sereeni to go back until lunchtime. Alright guys, that's us finally here working on Sereeni. You'll have to excuse the mess, it has been a manic day. I have just finished filming the gecko video, so hopefully you've already seen that, and I was supposed to also be doing an unboxing video today, but that stuff never arrived. It's a supplier who's kind of let us down in the past that we got these from. We originally agreed to have this stuff sent to us on Friday. It never arrived, so that was yesterday. And we got in touch with them saying, you know, tomorrow as in today is going to be the only day we're in, so we need it to arrive. They agreed to it, not heard back, we've not had anything turn up, so we don't know what's going on with that. That's been quite frustrating. So we'll find out if that does arrive. There'll be an unboxing at some point, assuming it arrives. But yeah, we're on to Sereeni. So just at my feet here, I have got a mouse thawing out for her dinner. So she's onto some decent sized mice at the moment. If you've never fed snakes before, it is super simple to feed frozen fod. All you do is you pick up a frozen mouse at the pet shop, pop it in a freezer bag, float it in some warm water, and that's going to bring it up to temperature. Because snakes are quite sensitive to heat and temperature, and they can essentially see with thermal vision, although it's not quite that, it's more like smelling the heat. It's a really cool mechanism. When we talk about that at some point in a future video, we can go into the science behind it. But because they do have that thermal vision, they're going to pick up on hotter heat sources. So if we bring it up to, you know, that body temperature, it's going to recognise it as something that might potentially be prey. It's going to increase the likelihood that your snake's going to eat. A lot of time when you hear people talking about their snake not eating, it's because they're trying to feed them cold food. And unless, you know, they're used to that, they're not going to want to take something that's cold, essentially. It's dead animal, could have been there for how long? So that really helps. Another thing I do with my snakes is I always feed them in a separate box to their enclosure. So another one, you hear a lot of guys talking about food aggression in snakes, or aggression in snakes, whenever, like, oh, whenever I open my enclosure, the snake lunges at me. But that's because the only time you go into your enclosure is to give them food. So if something comes into that enclosure, what's that snake going to think it is? It's going to think it's food. It's going to strike at it. So I always like to take my snakes out, put them in a separate box to feed. That way I get rid of that issue. Put them in the box, put in the food with some tongs, let it eat, and then I move it into the enclosure. Only downside to that is obviously you need to handle the snake again after it's fed. But once the snake's used to it, it's really not that much of an issue. So let's get Sereeni out. Sereeni she's ended up being such an amazing little snake. She's so well behaved, she's beautiful. The markings on her are incredible. She's got this nice white belly. None of the markings are broken. She's a really good example of a wild type royal python, which is just amazing. But let's pop her in this other box to chill out for a wee bit. So it's just one of these really useful boxes, the ones with the clips on the side. I have popped her hide in there and a couple of bits of wood because she might be in there for, you know, a good half hour or an hour while we sort out her enclosure. Right, let's start to clear out this enclosure. These are just a few extra bits I added because although I didn't want to change too much while she was settling in, her enclosure was very plain. I like to give her a wee bit more interest. I am so glad we are actually finally getting rid of this aspen. It's a really popular bedding for snakes, but it's not actually that good for them. Yeah, it holds a burrow and stuff, but it's scratchy and it's dusty and it just causes them issues. I mean, you can kind of feel it. Like if that feels rough on our hands, imagine that across your belly. Imagine you just shed off your skin and the stuff underneath is all nice and soft and then you're scraping it across this. Can't be very comfortable. Oh, finding some poo and urate, so you can tell the poo because it's brown stuff in the middle of this. And if you ever see this white, stuff in your snake's enclosure, that is urates. So that is essentially calcified pee, and that is partially an adaptive trait to aid against desiccation, so basically drying out. Some crabs have pretty cool systems like that, where it's little urea crystals they have, freshwater crabs, and that's to stop them losing salt. Right, I'm going to grab the hoover and get this cleaned out. This is my girlfriend's good hoover, so if she sees this video, I am in serious fucking trouble. We're just going to give this a spray with some reptile safe disinfectant. Give it all a super quick wipe down, just to try and stop any build up of bacteria. Right, now that we've got it nice and empty, we're going to start with our new substrate mix. So, I am going to be making my own mix using some topsoil, orchid bark, and some tortoise terrain, which I prefer to use to a lot of the snake bedding actually. It's a really good mix, this stuff. Just the pets at home stuff, if anybody's in the UK, is actually pretty good and it's pretty cost effective, which is nice, especially when you've got a few enclosures to do. So we're going to start with an entire bag of tortoise terrain. I believe these are some 10 kilo bag each. Give that a nice little spread out. Into that, add a good clump of topsoil. That should be enough, so let's give it a nice mix. So the topsoil is going to help with the bioactive component of this terrarium. And then lastly, I'm just going to add some remnants of my isopod mix. This is a mix that contains some rotten wood, some sphagnum, topsoil and sand. And we'll give that a good mix across. So the area where I'm going to have the main hide, I'm going to have a little bit flatter further down so that she can feel like she's almost going underground. So one of the things about ball pythons is you will find them in burrows in the wild. So they do like to get down deep into that soil. So I've got a nice piece of cork bark here. I'm going to connect it with this piece to look a bit like a log and give her a little bit more security, but she should still be able to get in there, no worries. It's looking much better already. Next, I'm going to add a water dish, and she seemed to really like this plant, so we are going to put it back in. Go a little bit root bound, hot bound. There is a tub below this, just in case you're wondering if I'm just scraping it into the room and then complaining about how dirty it is. Now, let's get this up in the corner perhaps. Now, she liked this big stick, so we're going to make sure this goes back in. Back here, coming over. There we go. Give her something. It's nice to have a few textures in your terrarium for your snake when it's shedding. So when it is trying to get that that old skin off, it likes things that are quite rough to be able to rub up against. Which is why cork bark is so brilliant. But one thing with cork bark is it's not very heavy, so they can move it quite easily. So having slightly bigger, heavier logs in there, or even stones and rocks, are really good for allowing your snake to squeeze against it when it's shedding. Try and get that skin off. And it just looks nice in the enclosure as well, lets you vary up that texture a bit. Now, do I want another piece of cork bark at the back? It doesn't look quite right, does it? So we don't want it to be too busy. But as I say, we just want to vary up that texture a bit for her. I think that worked. But we've got one kind of vertical now, give her a wee bit of space to move up. Now this isn't our final enclosure. I have got a massive 6-foot terrarium, like 6 by 4 foot or something terrarium in the garage that she is going to get. But I just don't want to make too many changes too quickly while she's settling in. So I want to keep her old vivarium where she knows the size and stuff. It's just on the cusp of still being the right size for her. So she can stretch out across the front here. But I think it's looking good so far. Let's try and get some of the other things in. I think we'll pop some little bits of bark in here. So we don't want too much of this. Like I said, when she's shedding and stuff, we don't want the substrate to be too rough on our scales. This is just more to make it look that bit interesting. And it's quite good for the plant as well as a mulch. So I'll pop a wee bit up the back here. And I think the next thing we're going to add is some leaf litter. So I've got loads of leaf litter here, so we're going to give that a good scatter. We want to make it feel like the forest floor. And then some even bigger leaves perhaps. I think that's starting to look like a jungle floor now. We've got the pothos. Do we want anything else? I don't think so. Let's give it all a good spray now. Now, it wouldn't be bioactive without a cleanup crew, and that is going to start with our springtails. So these are springtails that I culture myself, just using some water and some organic lumpwood charcoal. And all you need to do is when you're ready, you can either pour some water into the enclosure, or you can take out a little piece of charcoal, give it a little tap on the inside. Just do that a few times, knock off some of these springtails into the enclosure. In fact, I think we'll just pour some in. Might as well, while we're adding the humidity, it'll help. Let's just add a wee bit more. Right, cool. Hopefully that should be enough to start up their colony. And then for the other aspect of that cleanup crew, we are going to go with isopods. And I've got a drawer over here full of them, but I thought these guys would be perfect. So these are Armadillidium maculatum, the zebra isopod, and I thought the colours just matched our ball python so well, with those almost like white and browny grey stripes on it. So let's get these guys added. And we've got lots of babies. We know these guys will do really well in a setup like this. There we go, that should be more than enough for that setup. Now, let's see if she's feeling hungry. Oh, definitely. Now let's leave her to eat that for a while. Hey guys, now Sereeni has finished her dinner, but we want to be nice and quick here. I'm going to get her in to her new home. Get out, is it? I'm not sure. Well, guys, that's Sereeni well and truly settled in now. She's had her meal and she's in her fancy new enclosure and having fun exploring it. Just want to thank you guys for sticking around for the first of our vlog style videos. This is something I'm hoping to do a lot more of in the future, so keep an eye out for these if you want to see how the channel and the animal room are developing. And until next time, cheerio and Jasta.